It is not always realized that Caravaggio was one of Western art's greatest contemporary artists, but there are few of whom one can only speak of art before Caravaggio and art after Caravaggio. Caravaggio transformed forever the practice of Western painting, and every artist who followed him, even if they chose not to imitate his style, could not ignore him. Caravaggio painted this work in 1606 as he fled Rome to Naples after murdering Ranuccio Tommasoni. He was staying at the estate of one of his protectors, the Colonna family, and returned to a subject he had painted once before in 1601, the Cena at Emmaus. Whereas the earlier version was theatrical and dramatically lighted, the second version is somber and introspective and profoundly moving. It shows the moment when two strangers, having met a foreigner on the road from Jerusalem and invited him to dinner to tell of the recent events, suddenly realize as he breaks the bread that it is the resurrected Christ. In the Gospel account, Christ then disappears, but in Caravaggio's painting, he remains with us forever.
Wassily Kandinsky painted Landscape with Red Spots, number 2, in 1913, while he was living in southern Bavaria. Russian-born, he decided in 1896 to completely change career path when he saw in Moscow one of Claude Monet's haystack paintings, which struck him for its qualities of fleeting light and atmospheric conditions. So he abandoned his studies in economics and studied art in Munich at the age of 30. Always a great traveler, he decided to go to Paris in 1906, where he encountered the paintings of works by Henri Matisse and the French Fauve artists. And upon his return to Germany in 1908, he settled in the picturesque Bavarian town of Murnau, when he began to paint colorful landscapes. At last finding his voice, Kandinsky embarked on an arduous artistic journey against traditional aesthetic values in his belief of a better and more spiritual future. In the early teens, his paintings became increasingly more abstract and culminated in works characterized by the melting of figurative elements and the introduction of spots and splashes of color meant to elicit an emotional response from the viewer.
Paintings often present us with values that are at once profoundly personal and profoundly universal. Here, Caravaggio paints an episode that speaks of the importance of welcoming strangers and protecting them rather than leaving them to face the dangers of the open road.
A pioneer of abstraction in the early 20th century and a prolific writer, Kandinsky believed in the transformative powers of art, and many of his early paintings may be considered as manifestations of events of an inner spiritual character. 1913 was a particularly productive and intensive year for the artist. On the eve of the outbreak of World War I, which required the artist to return to Russia for several years, marking a new phase in his artistic development.
Caravaggio also speaks to the importance of tolerance, not fear, of welcome, not rejection, of generosity and not callousness. The episode reminds us, recalling the story of Tobias, do not be inhospitable to strangers, lest they be angels in disguise. In this work, Christ, a perfect stranger, is also the perfect, unexpected guest.
Throughout his long cosmopolitan life as an artist, writer and teacher, Kandinsky did not shy away from the personal and external crises and challenges he had to endure. He changed and experimented continuously, reinventing himself as circumstances dictated.
Art is never contemporary. We are. Each of us faces the future with the same uncertainty and with the same anxiety.
But art gives us a key for understanding, and in some cases confronting our fears. It can be consolation, inspiration, or revelation.
As time moves on, art is left behind us to help us understand the world we live in and our place in it. Most importantly, what world would we want to have in the future? When we reinsert the past into our time present, we sow the seeds for our own future.